Hello, interactive art designers. Today is our initial intro into responsive design. This entire middle of the semester will be dedicated to um, responsive design, which means how do you make your website accommodate different devices? So, if someone loads up the site on their phone, a mobile device, which is vertical oftentimes and very small, how do you make your site respond to that interface as opposed to opening up on a very wide desktop computer? So we're going to start this by just looking at units that are responsive. We've been using pixels more or less for the first project, even though we did show you responsive images. But now we're going to think globally, for the whole site as responsive. And then a big part of this is going to be the introduction of media queries. That will not happen today because, this is the intro. But media queries are when you tell CSS to do one thing for a screen of a certain resolution and another thing for a screen of a different resolution. So you can have different images that are served up on in one design versus the other. But today we're actually going to start with what we know and just sort of a review. For your homework, you're going to put a site together. I've given you the images. We're going to make this Oktoberfest themed because, October. Could have done Halloween candy too. Oh well, we're sticking with beer because, Jeff. All right, so I've already set up behind me, my local site folder. So if you download your homework and unzip it, there's a folder of images and an index, and I'm going to disappear and click this now. All right, your index, it's literally just a bunch of links. They're already hooked up to things. And in your homework folder, there is a guide to what your layout should look like. So let me jump to Google Chrome here. That's where you're starting. This is where you're ending up sort of at the middle once we have it in pixel values. The initial setup, I'm going to have you guys set it up in pixels. And then we're going to switch all these pixel units to relative units. So let's just take a look real quick what we have. We have a header, and then we essentially have three columns. We have this navigation column on the left, and then we have a column of images and another column of images. Now, we could do this a few different ways. We could have these images stay the same size and we could have them reformat easy enough. If they were all floated, they would take up whatever next available space they have as long as there's no breaks or anything between them. Or we could just go ahead and jump right into columns and keep this like in a grid of two columns of images, which we'll do. And then we'll make these images expand and contract as the columns expand and contract based on the space. That would be the easiest way to do it. And you know what? I'm also going to put little captions under here just to mix up our design. No one's ever FaceTimed me before when I was actually while I was actually doing a demo. I'm going to keep rolling though because that was quick and someone canceled that. Okay. All right. So this is where we're heading for part one, and then part two it'll be more responsive. Okay. So back to Dreamweaver. Like I said, I have this set up, and this is a navigation on the left, but like before, you're going to want to go into your code and insert a header first of all, because there's a header first. So do that just like before. Make sure your cursor's down here so it brings up your CSS rule, and just take a guess as to how you want it to look. I'll call this Oktoberfest. Okay, well that's pretty obvious. And we have there's already a style sheet in here, I think. I should have checked. It looks like there is because it's hinting at that there is one. It doesn't exist. Oh, that's good. It's going to create it for me, so yay. We will give this a width of like, you know what, we will just jump in here and do 100% we're going to make the header responsive because some of you did that for your last project and that was easy enough, right? And we'll give it a height of like 200 for now. Okay, and then we could have also put that in this box here. It doesn't matter where. I'm going to set this to 0 and 0 for now. The position, the padding, and the margin. And as always, we're going to go ahead and give it some kind of background color so we can just make sure it's showing up. And I'm going to use the default hex values now because those are, the go-tos if you don't need transparencies. Okay. We got that guy in there. This content for class Oktoberfest goes here. We'll keep that selected and we'll just go ahead and insert our image right now because I do have a header image in there for you. So Oktoberfest header, open. Okay, now I can go ahead and delete that type because that looks stupid. Okay. I am going to shrink that up a hair because now I know I can. So I can go to demo CSS and my Oktoberfest header. And I could have made that a ID if I wanted to. I'm only gonna have one, so an ID would have made plenty of sense, but in this case it doesn't quite really matter because I'm not gonna try to link to it or anything with an anchor link. Let's shrink this guy down. And remind you guys that you can change the background color to match this. Just click on the little eyedropper and then click the color. And then you're set. Okay, so it looks like it floats in there. We'll position it in the center in a little bit. Okay. Next we have down here, let's see where our header ends. There's our header, and then we have these links. All these links. So I'm going to select them because we need to nest them within another column or div. So I'm going to select them so that when I do insert and insert, I'll do navigation. This time I will do an ID just because we can. I'll call it main nav. And then CSS rule, and it'll go in demo CSS, main nav, okay. We will make this one like 200 pixels by 300 pixels. And you know what I think we should do? I was thinking maybe we'd make this fixed so I could make it like a cool little tab. But we'll come back to that. Again, we'll just stick everything, we'll put everything in there now and we'll come back to that. And I will put a little bit of padding on the top, like 30 pixels, and the bottom like 30 pixels, and the right like 20. I'm just guessing to see what I think will look good. Oh, and a background color again. We'll do everything in browns since it's October. Okay, also notice I had wrap around selection base picked and when I did that, so it wrapped around that. So here's my main nav, and all those links are nested in it. You know what? Let's just do the links next because that's a really good reminder of what you can do here. So they look like they're buttons, right? Let's just go ahead and do that. So remember that they're already set to link, so they're in this A. So I clicked on one of them just to show you that, but we can go over here to our CSS designer, and we can say, oh, let's see, in our demo CSS, we need to add a new selector, and it gives us a hint, main nav A, but we want to go ahead and make this pseudo class, and then so that we can have our other different states for this button. Just assume that we're going to have other states. We'll just go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to set it to the display to block. And remember, that'll put them all on their own line. So look what happened there. I'm going to go to my type, and I should have picked out some. I should find a black letter font or something. But you won't have that. So let's just do text align center. And we will give it a background color of, now I don't know if this will take just yet because we might have to add a few more elements. Background color of yellow. We got to space them out, right? So we will also, let me move this guy up. We'll have to give it some margin. So if we give it some margin, I'm going to make sure that's unchecked. I'll give it some top margin. You can see them all spacing nicely. We will also give it a little bit of padding on the top. Like, let's just say like 4 pixels. And again, we'll keep everything and 4 pixels on the bottom. Okay, now we got to go to the type things and get rid of that blue. Let's do a color of like a dark brown also. And turn off the underlining, so no text decoration. And size, font family. Let's look, I can't remember what King Things was, but I have that. That's not really working with my, let's just do like Lucida Grand for now. That's nice and clean. I'm gonna find a black letter font later on. And font size, again. We did, you know what, we'll just go ahead and start using M's because this is a good time to refresh that. And I'm gonna start with 1M because this is a relative unit for type. And what is 1M again? Well, that's whatever the default size is for your site defined in the body tag. And as you know, we don't have a body tag yet. We should really do that next. Honestly, when I'm working at home, I have a sort of a basic CSS page I just use for everything that already has the body tag on there. But we're gonna go ahead and make that. So we'll do our, oopsie, what did I do here? Oh, that's from my, this is from my type that I added and then decided not to. As soon as I added that, that font, since it wasn't one of the standard system fonts, it gave me the style sheets CSS, which has this font face tag, even though I didn't end up using it. Okay, so on our demo CSS, we're going to add a body tag. Remember, this is an element selector. It doesn't need a period or anything. And all I want to do here is, this is like the parent to everything else. So, oopsie, I'm going to make it 100% and 100%. And I'm going to set the margins to 0. Okay, remember to turn off the default margins. I should also go ahead and do the same rule. Let's drag this to the very top first because it should be at the very top, except that we want one thing above it. And if you might remember that we also want something very similar to that for HTML because that's the true parent. Super duper parent. So we'll do the same thing. 100%. Somehow I keep doing that. And 100%. I did it again. I guess I'm not missing that 0. And this time we don't really have to turn off the margins. So, but the 100% and 100% is going to be important when we start using responsive heights. So that's at the very top, this HTML tag. I'm going to do show set. That's all it does. Body is very similar except I have the margins turned off. And then, well, then everything, it doesn't really change very much. You did see the margins turn off, but what it does do is allow for our children, all the other tags, to use percentages, both width and height percentages, which is what we need. Okay, also for body, remember the important thing is, I remember how I got onto this topic, is that we were adding some M's, right? We had our pseudo class for the links, and I said I wanted the type to be 1M. And if I don't define a font size under the body, the default is 16 pixels. So 1M is currently 16 pixels. But if I go to the body and I say, oh, you know what? I want the type size to be, I'm going to do 32 just so this will be really dramatic. I want that to be 32 pixels. And here I wouldn't use an M because this is like the daddy of them all, or the mom of them all. If I say, now again, I'm making this 32 pixels on the body. I'm not on my linking tag, but my linking tag is changing. Because remember, the A link is 1M, and 1M is equivalent to whatever my body is. So if my body says 32 pixels, 1M is 32 pixels. If my body is 16 pixels, which is the default, then 1M is 16 pixels. Now I can go down here and remember, ideally, you'd have everything in M's so that if you change your body, everything across your whole website can change. So that's why it's powerful. And you can use fractions like 1.2 M's, which is what I'm going to use right there. I'm also going to increase a few things here, like the margin. I'm going to change to 20 pixels. Okay, also I'm going to put a little border on here. When you do the border, make sure you set all these things. So borders are one of those things I'll keep in pixels. A solid border, and keep it black. And 1 pixel, Jeff. I can't see it. Okay, thin 1 pixel. Probably should have matched the border with the type, but we'll go back and do that later for expedience. Okay, so those guys are set. All I need is my pictures. I'll probably also, you know what? I'm gonna lock these and add a little bit of corner radius on those buttons too, just for fun. Okay, just to make them smooth, nice and round. My pictures, I will need, so here's how I can do these. I don't want to just start shoving pictures into my body. What I want to do is go over here and add, I think what I'll do is basically add a column. A column here and a column here, and stack the pictures in them that way because it'll make them easier to format and resize and everything, because I'll just need to change the column widths. And it's easy to make a column. Working up and down in a browser is super easy at building a website because that's how the natural stacking order goes. So columns make things easy. So after my navigation, I'm going to build a column. Now remember, I will likely have to float my navigation because my column will probably stack up under it. But let's go ahead and insert. And here's what's going to be cool. I want my columns to be the same. They're going to have different images in them, but the columns themselves are going to be the same. So knowing that, and knowing I have 2 of them, I could make a class that covers both of them, right? So let's go ahead and do that. 2 similar columns. The only thing that's going to be different is the positioning, but not really, because I can use margins of equal distance on the left side, and that should push them off so that they stack evenly. So watch, we'll do that. We'll just go ahead and say, let's insert a section. And we'll call it main. Wait, how about pick columns for picture columns. Put in demo CSS, say OK. The important thing again is that I give it a background color. We'll make it super bright for now. No, not that bright. Okay, we don't need to do that. We can make it something like this. And I will give it a height as well, a width and a height. And again, I'm going to start with pixels and then move them over. Okay, so let's just say my images are 300 pixels wide. So I'm going to actually say 250 for now, and you'll see why here in a minute. And then height, we'll just say like 700 pixels. And then I'll put 0 padding, and the margin, we'll put some left margin on it so they won't be right next to each other when I put 2 of them in. So say OK. All right. Now again, it's down there under that. So remember how this works. I likely, if I was doing this for real, might fix this navigation column, which would send this right up under it. But let's say I don't want to do that. Then I can float that. My other options is I can float my, my main nav. So come over here and float this to the left. And then we'll also have to float our columns, right? We got to do that anyway because we want the next to go up under it. So we'll float that. And that's why I put the margin on the left. I can add some more margin if I want. Move that over. Now here's what's cool. I already have so I have a section where the class is pick columns. And pick columns has, a width and a height and a margin and some padding. Well, I didn't put any padding in yet, but I will. I can literally just cut and paste this. I can insert again if I want, insert another section and assign a class of pick columns. Or I can literally cut and paste this line of code because I want the same thing. So I could, like I said, but let's just go ahead and insert it so we're all clear of what's happening here. So I would insert another section, give it the same class. And this time I would not have to do a new CSS rule because I already have a CSS rule, right? Just make sure I spelled exactly correct with the same case sensitivity and say OK. And like I said, it's the exact same line of code. Line 13 is exactly the same as line 12. Okay, but the important thing is I had this rule already, so I didn't need to make it again. I just had to be clever in thinking of the rule. Okay, so all I need now is some pictures, and we'll probably pause this video and give you a second video to get to this point. Okay, so some pictures, easy enough to do. I'm going to take this out here. Now that that's jumping in there, I can say insert and picture. Although keep in mind, since there's 6 pictures, what might be easier is just to go to our design view and over to our files. And I don't care how you arrange these pictures, but now keep in mind also that they're bigger. I told you they were 300 pixels wide, and we only made our column 250. That's because when I make these responsive, well, they look real. I'm going to change that now that I think about it. I need 3 there, and then here's beer 1. I'll put over here, and then which one didn't I use? That wasn't very smart, Jeff. That's definitely a beer. I got Heather in there twice, but she deserves to be. So 5. Ooh, I got a gargoyle, which I took from, these are all either a beer garden on a way to a beer garden in the castle, definitely a beer garden there. Which one didn't I use? Let's look at my split view here for a minute. I'm going to split these sections also just to make it easier to read. Beer 3, beer 6, beer 2. I think I didn't use 4. It's okay. Let's go ahead and delete one of Heather and put 4 in there. We already used that. Okay. Okay, Jeff. There we go. We got them all. Oh, it was this one. Oh, I love that picture. Vienna Beer Garden. Okay. Now, a few little changes before I wrap this up because I want this to look better. So let's go back to our live view. Take out this text because that looks stupid. It's pushing everything down. Go to our pick columns and just make them, I'm going to make them a little bit more than 300 so we can see how these images are going to respond. Like I'll make them 350. Okay, and notice they're both increasing. This makes it super easy to have one rule. And so the next thing you're going to think is, well, how do I separate those images? Well, that's really easy, remember? I can click on one of them, and I can say I need a rule to tell us to do that. Pick columns image should affect both the images or all the images in my picture columns, which both of these are the same class. So this rule would work with all the images in both these columns, which is perfect. So let's do that. Uncheck show set, and then just put some margin on the top because we need to move the top one down. And they'll all move down, right? So look at that. I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna turn off, here's another thing. We've always been giving these columns and stuff widths and heights, but I'm gonna actually show you if you don't give it height, the height will be just enough to fit in all your content. So it goes to the bottom of that. So maybe I could use some padding on the bottom of this box, of this column. If I put some padding on the bottom of this, it would give me some oopsie. Let's undo that because I have this locked. Scroll down here. That would give me, that's giving me some extra room down there, right? Because I'm adding padding. I have to keep scrolling to see it, but let's just make it 50. So the height of that box is defined by the content and the padding, as you would expect. Now I'm gonna don't worry about these being centered because I'm gonna turn this color off or match this background color for my body to the background of these columns so that you won't see these columns, but you know they're there. I want you to know they're there for now. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that right now. We will just go ahead and go to our body tag. Click on body background, grab this little eyedropper, click on that. And oops, look what it did. It did that because I had it selected somehow. So that's okay. And it gave me that weird green. Okay, there we go. All right, so the columns are there. I'll turn it back on for this next section, but I'm gonna go ahead and pause this video after I do one last thing, and that is take the main nav and modify that just a hair. I'm going to take the main nav and give it some more margin at the top because, again, when I took it out of the normal stacking order, well, I just need to move it down. So let's go here and sure that's not block. So let's put it somewhere around there. Let's do just 90. It's nice and roundish. Okay,